Hello, gentlemen. What?
Hey.
Gentlemen and a box. How are you two doing today?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing awesome. It's early in the morning. I've had a coffee. It hasn't kicked in yet, but we're doing good. Thank you.
Before I address this box or this head on the bottom of the screen, since you mentioned early in the morning, James is in Hong Kong and Boxhead is in Taiwan.
Call me Jim Box.
Jim Box.
Yeah.
So before we dive into anything, Jim Box, what's going on down there with the box on your head?
Well, a few years ago, I had a client that asked me if I could do a training on out-of-the-box thinking. And I was thinking to myself, well, what is the box you're supposed to think out of? And on the training day, I had them build boxes and stick them on their heads. And we put boxes on people's heads so we could take them off. The whole reason that we do boxes on people's heads is so that people understand what is the box you're supposed to think out of when people say think out of the box. And then how do you build a better box? And once people realize just how constricting their thinking can be, you never want to go back in. And so we have a program designed to help people think creatively by reflecting on what are the boundaries of their thinking, their box, their unconscious thinking, and then thinking out of that and then building a better box. And we call it thinking in and out of the box.
I love that. That's fantastic. Can you hold the box up again? Because I just noticed something. It looks like his mouth and his beard are a coffee mug with coffee in it. I actually thought he might be holding up a coffee mug.
No, not a coffee mug.
Oh yeah, James has a different.
Yeah, so this is basically part of the process is to draw the outside of your box. And so this is all custom designed by the participant. And the idea is that, so I've got my public self, and that's what I'm happy to share and what I want people to connect with and how I protect myself. And then I have my inner thinking too. And so I've got the filters that I use to understand. I've got my decision-making shortcuts that I set up by positives and negatives. And then I have my vision of the future, which is I give myself pressure to force me into making the change to achieve the vision of the future. And so the process is basically set the baseline of what you're thinking now and how that's causing you maybe too much pressure or not getting you what you want. And then redesign your unconscious thinking and how you show up in the world to get more of what you really want while experiencing less pressure.
Wow. He's a humble guy. This took, he's been tinkering with this for some time.
Only 11 years.
Only 11 years. And so he's certainly the master of it. And he's put, collectively, I think the group of us have put more than 20,000 boxes on people's heads and taken them off from senior grizzled boards of directors to young kids to intact teams to public programs all across the planet. And I think it's one of the most unique. There are many that's been developed by Jim or myself or collectively, but this is perhaps one of the most unique ones. Yeah.
So there was a lot to unpack. You talked a lot about the inside and outside of the box, or you breezed over a lot of it. But before we delve in, now that we have Jimbo back from Jim Box, I know this is dangerous, but I like to live on the edge. It's Friday morning for us here, and I haven't had coffee. So James, will you intro Jimbo, and then I'm going to give Jimbo a chance for revenge. To introduce you.
Okay, I will be appropriate because I still have to work with him as well after this call. I've been working with Jim for almost 20 years now. I'm based in Hong Kong. He's based in Taiwan. Jim's actually originally from Seattle and has lived in Asia for 27 or 30 years now, Jim?
31.
31 years, golly. I met Jim 20 years ago. We were working for the same organization. He was director of services in Taiwan. I was director of services in Hong Kong for a company that provided English language learning clubs for adults and for kids. The kids one was with Disney, and really powerful stuff. And that's where we cut our teeth on experiential learning. we've had a broad range of experiences, but even from Jim's early missionary days, that's a story in itself. Jim has a family in Taipei. His wife is Taiwanese, as is mine, and he has 2 kids, as do I. He's basically my brother from another mother.
I thought you
And
said that he
we
was your
have,
work wife.
well, it depends on who I'm talking to. So, and so because we have a similar approach, yet still quite different in our love of experiential learning. He is what I might call the innovator. I'm the adapter. And so we have this great relationship of being able to work together to co-facilitate, which I think is one of the most fun things you get to do. You get to bring great programs to people, and you get to work with your best friend. So how good is that?
Oh,
That's
Ta-da.
awesome.
I told
Did you
myself
like
I
that?
wasn't going to cry.
Okay, it's okay.
So, is it my turn?
It is.
All right. So here's something that people don't know about James and I. Is I actually married James Bishop.
It's true.
I performed the ceremony for James and his wife. So I was
Okay.
the officiant for James's marriage. I met his wife about 8 years before he did, and she was worked in the same office with me and my wife. We were all colleagues together. So at some level, I was also the matchmaker. At some level, playing the matchmaker there. James says brother from another mother and a work wife. For me, I think James is I'm the younger brother, and I have an older brother. And even though James is a little chronologically younger than me, I still look at him as my Asian older brother. And I think some of the things I really appreciate about James is he has genuine love and care for humanity in general and humans in specific. I think a lot of people talk a big game, and but the outside of the box of a lot of people is this real caring and sustainability, and James lives that on the inside, and it's just so natural for him to care about those things. And then the other thing I think is really interesting, I think maybe it's close to the topic here, is James is the person who is able to imagine a future that has not yet developed and start getting in the way of that. And so his ability to totally adjust his business in the last 2 months, and his skill set and his network and his offer to the world is like just spot on. And so I'm kind of riding in the wake of all the things that he's doing. And so I'm just back there. He's driving the boat, and I'm water skiing in the back going, yeah, go a little faster. And so yeah, so we get a chance to and then the other thing is he's really good at turning red. I don't know if you can notice that in the video there, but he is very good at that.
Do you
But
have
yeah,
do you have a waterproof box for the water skiing?
this thing, it's
What a great
indestructible.
idea.
We've tried to burn the box. I've had so many people say, "Can we just it's indestructible. You can't get rid of it."
I love that. So I'm going to just layer on, just because it's fascinating. I was introduced to James by my brother, who lives in Hong Kong with his wife and 4 kids, and that was exciting. And for those of you listening in, last week, DJ Begbie and Matthew Gao shared with us about Crossroads, and that's where my brother works, and that's where James and my brother Jason have intersected. So for me, it's so fun. The world feels so small when those connections happen, and I just love having more exposure and relationships with people around the globe, especially right now, because you guys have already been down a path a little bit in front of where we are in the States. And listening in, we have people in Africa, we have people in Europe, Asia, North America. So that was one of the reasons I was really excited to have you on. And spoiler, I actually have attended one of your sessions. I brought my mom and my younger sister. I was excited. And for anyone who knows me, I don't want to say I'm the most critical person on the planet. That might be somebody else in my family. I mean, I don't know which one, all of us. And I have the attention span of a gnat. So I don't usually like workshops. Oh, the time flew by. And my mom and my sister, who are very different than me, they loved it too. I knew that they would find it interesting, especially because nobody has anything better to do. And both of them reached out to me separately, and they were really impacted. I mean, like in ways that I won't share because it was deep. I mean, it was personal, and I don't have waivers to share that. But so for those of you listening, it's incredible. So pay attention. This is good stuff. So thank you both so much for joining us. I'm excited to dive in. So to start, what's going on in your corner of the planet, not life, business, all of that, before this little beast of a germ, bacteria, virus, I don't know, I'm not medical, and then where you are now?
Wow, that's the biggest question ever. Let me have a crack at this first, Jim, and then you can take over. So where are we now? We're April 17. So we are 2.5 months into this in Hong Kong, and we've started to see in terms of the virus, we've seen a decline. We're just over 1,000 cases, population of 8 million people. We might be easing up to get back to work and some kind of normality. It'll never go back to whatever it was before. We're moving into a new thing, and more about that later. For my kids, they've been basically out of school since the end of January, so 2.5 months. And I know you speak to your brother in Hong Kong as well. What's going on there? My kids and I, we still talk. We're good. They're teenagers, so as long as you've got Wi-Fi, so Maslow's hierarchy of needs begins with the baseline of Wi-Fi. You've all seen that one, and they go, yeah, Wi-Fi must be there. So we've got blisteringly good Wi-Fi, though fortunately my kids are not playing Fortnite or Minecraft right now because they're still asleep. So we've got great bandwidth right now. But you know, last week it was a bit tough. I hit traffic going from my bedroom to the lounge room, where I know it took me at least 35 seconds to get to the office. I had kids in the hallway. You know, we're going to have to put traffic lights in there at some point just to move it up.
The lost productivity, that's astounding.
I know.
Yeah.
The things, and you know, and I use my kids as child labor, so I had to, you know, dock their pay. So anyway, it's actually okay. You know, my wife and I, who's my business partner, she's the left brain to my right. You heard her mentioned by that eloquent description. I'm going to have to go back and replay that one, Jim. Thank you. You do write my material. It's been an incredible time of creativity, of productivity, of lack of sleep. We're working, you know, it feels like 25-hour days. And Zoom is wonderful, and Zoom is also a bit of a challenge, and all the other platforms that, you know, we all use. And we were coming back from Chinese New Year, end of January. I was in New Zealand with my son. My wife was in Taiwan with our daughter. We normally spend Chinese New Year together, but because of our parents are getting on, we wanted to make sure we're seeing them. And we were at the our respective airports, opposite ends, you know, in Taiwan and New Zealand, going, do we fly back? As we're seeing as things unfolded. And we thought, no, we want to be together as a family, wherever we are. And in terms of our business, we want to be closer to our clients. I mean, though our, you know, like Jim, our businesses are not just in the countries that we live in, but across Asia and further afield. But we know that being closer, physically closer to, whilst socially distancing, to our clients, this is what they will remember, and we will remember. We were in the trenches with them during this time, not just going, things are back, here I am. And so that was an important lesson. And the speed of change, of prototyping, you know, we put out new information sheets about Zoom and about this, and we always say it'll all be different in 48 hours. And this whole concept of being an expert has shifted with us as well. There are no experts. What is an expert? They have 3 weeks more knowledge than the other person. And that's okay, because we want them to catch up so they can push us on and drive us on to learn and challenge ourselves to new things. And the speed of prototyping that Jimbo has done with the box and all the communities of practice that we work with has been incredible. And like all of us, our willingness to be on a 2 a.m. Webinar, workshop, meeting, so be it. Yeah. In a sense, when you think about all the New York headquartered companies that might have driven the narrative for many years and also driven the time of conference calls internationally, it's like, yes, it's this time here. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's 2 a.m. Okay, that's fine. And internet will be fine. I love it. So yeah, those are just the quick highlights. I mean, there's a stack of other things, but
a quick question. You mentioned they might be easing up restrictions. Is this the first go round of easing up, or is this a second or third try?
Yeah, it might be the third of several. So the first wave was about we had a few hundred cases, and everyone who had left Hong Kong during the beginning of the crisis basically came back once it hit Europe and America and elsewhere. And so then we had a lot of reinfections that were taking place, not so much community-based, but mostly those who had returned who had already got something. And so we went, from a few hundred to just over 1,000. But the actual new cases have dropped. We only had a couple of new cases yesterday, I think. Taiwan's the all-star in this story, and Jim can share that in a moment. But I am concerned, though, that if we ease off too soon, that we're going to get more of that. And to be honest, we're just preparing for this new world of long quarantines for many, many, many months. And so it's not about us waiting to go back to the way things were, but imagining okay, what is this new world? What is, is it living like this? Of course, we want to meet face to face or mask to mask. And, I'm following government social distancing rules. I'm actually running a workshop at a large event space so that people can socially distance, and everyone's masked up and, hand sanitizers. So it's an experiment in that we are following government protocols. And I don't like having to speak or facilitate or train wearing a mask. But hey, let's try it. Let's give it a go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I keep thinking that we talked about this term, but the new normal, really just, we need to see it as constant change and the ability to adapt, flex, move here, move there, and kind of just the weave, turn, bend.
Which is actually the old normal. Right? I mean, we were flexing and bending before.
I know, because I come from the tech world.
Happen at a different speed with a different level of predictability.
Yeah, and it wasn't caused by this little invisible, nasty hellion of a virus. So same question to you, Jimbo.
Well, I like to start with the good news. The good news is in the last 3 days, we've had 2 days in Taiwan with 0 new cases. Yeah, and I still get goosebumps. I mean, and when they announced that, and Taipei has Taipei 101, this big building, and they put 0, they just put a big, huge 0 on it. And so I guess one message I'd like to give people, James always talked about the message from the future. There is going to be a day when your city, your state, your country has 0 new cases, and that will happen. The journey to that for every city, state, country is going to be very, very different. Taiwan has a lot of reasons why they were able to do what they did. And I'm happy to be living. I've always been, I mean, I live here 31 years. I've always been happy to live here. But right now, in terms of the impact on my day-to-day life, it's minimal. The impact on my business is unimaginable.
Because how many of your clients are, yeah, that's what
81.
yeah.
So, I mean, my business model for the last 10 years has been to live in Taipei, but to work regionally. So Taipei, 1.5 hours to Hong Kong, 2 hours to Shanghai, 3 hours to Beijing, 4 hours to Singapore. Oh God, Macau's 1.5 hours. And so about 80 to 90% of my business came from travel. And then in the last 1.5 years, both James and I have been working on our global reach and doing stuff in America, doing stuff in Europe, enjoying those occasional business class flights, oh, champagne, that's nice, And so all of that stopped. so all the face-to-face work for me, I don't have the opportunities to do that, that maybe some facilities in Hong Kong or Singapore or some of the countries that maybe haven't had some of the same difficulties that are going through in America. And so I just recently took my passport out of my backpack. I always keep my passport in my backpack because my nightmare is going to the airport.
Yep.
And I'd travel internationally 4 to 6 times a month in the peak season, and 2 to 4 times a month in the low season. So, yeah. So the good news is there will be a day with zero for all of us. The constraints for creativity. I don't like bad news. I like to call them constraints for creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, the constraints for creativity is, for the last 2 years, I've been shifting my business from me delivering training to clients to me training trainers. So I teach trainers how to use this physical product in a face-to-face program, and then I sell and ship my boxes to trainers around the world.
Around the world, so not just Asia.
Oh, no. We've got facilitators in Australia, Sweden, Germany, Spain, all over Asia, different parts of America. One guy in Ecuador. So yeah. So it's my image has been to create kind of a global network of change agents. And so this year I was planning on speaking at 6 different conferences. So this is my first a new conference, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess here's another good news. So I've been doing these the webinars that Jessica mentioned, and just Wednesday I did it. Finland, Sweden, France, South Africa, India, Philippines, Korea, Japan, Ecuador, all these different places. So suddenly from home, I have a global reach, where before I was flying for the global reach, and now I can make an offer to the world and have global reach. So I think that's part of the good news, is that global reach is more accessible now than it was 3 months ago.
Except you just made it sound like that just happened. Like you woke up one morning and you're like, oh, let's do this online.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was a lot of constraints for creativity to get there. Right.
So
and like,
tell
for
me,
the biggest constraint, honestly speaking, my biggest constraint is to teach people how to do what I do without selling them the product. Right. And so this in my business model, this has been how I make the long money. So I don't charge ongoing licensing fees. I just sell a product to the people I've trained. So if I can actually get a meaningful, and I appreciated your sharing today, you got me a little tear up there too when you did that. If I can create a way of impacting people that's replicable, but doesn't require an ongoing relationship, then that's scary as a provider. And so that was the biggest constraint for me, is, am I willing to come up with a way to have an impact on people where I don't see how I'm going to monetize that yet. I don't see the business model for that yet. I only see the service model, and I see the need. And so in talking with my life partner and my wife and my business partner, our response was, the world needs to think differently now. So get good at helping people think differently now. And as that co-creative next, as the world unfolds, then I'll be a player in that. And if I don't make the change now, I'm going to have a beautiful business model that may not be relevant for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So I want to ask a question, and I don't want it to sound trite. In kind of going through this, figuring out whether there's relevance and you can make money doing this, did you kind of have to use your own tool? I always think about, the cobbler's children have no shoes. Did you do that, or like, where are you in that process?
So actually, I was just sharing with one of the people that I've met through the program, and they were saying, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're doing this every week." And blah 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 blah. And I said, "Actually, I'm glad I'm doing it every week because every week I update my examples." And so, in the program, we're getting people to think about, what's your current thinking to survive these days, and what's the future thinking that you're driving towards and supporting that. So every week before I start my next week of programs, I update my examples, and it requires me to rethink. And so, can I show you something? This may or may not work. I just wanted to show you. I don't know if you can see this over here.
Yeah, yeah.
This is how I map my future. And so it's a wave. And so the way it works, the wave is, there's this part here, which is new ideas. These are the things I'm doing now. This is the crest of the wave. These are the things that are working really well. And this is the stuff that's no longer working. And then this piece here, the pink piece, that's the undertow, the danger area, things that are the invisible down. So I could show you a picture. Before COVID-19, I had 5, maybe 6 Post-it notes here in the throwaway part. And this was full on, tons of ideas. And I finally decided, I just have to throw, this is expired thinking, right? I've got to take those things off. And then you can't really see here, there's these light green Post-it notes here. These are the new strategies that are kind of going from being ideas to application. And so I still have a lot of, these are older ideas that someday maybe I'll do, but I've had to throw away the old to make space for that new. And so, and that's grieving.
I was just going to say, people listening to this, I mean, like I'm getting choked up, and I think people listening probably are too, because you birthed these babies, or you were getting ready to, and now it's chuck it.
Sunk cost.
If you're interested in learning about it, just go to look up wave trend analysis. Wave trend analysis. Yeah, that's what Jimbo was showing you.
Thank you.
That's a really powerful tool you can use for yourself, and you can use for your own teams. Do it for your family. It's a fun exercise. Just get it up on the wall. I have an atlas on my wall, and we have wave trends analysis. And as I said, I use my children to experiment on all kinds of training programs, as does Jim. There are other reasons we had children, but I mean, it was a good one. So I highly recommend you. Yes, obviously we can help run these programs for you, and we'd love to. But you can also do it yourself as well. And I think one thing that Jim and I have learned over the years, and especially now, is the spirit of generosity is so important. Kind of like what you're doing, Jessica. You have been incredibly generous with both your time and your energy to bring this incredible content. And the other thing, speaking of content, it's actually as much about the connection as it is about that. And all these trainings that we have been doing over the last few months, we have been letting go of content and spending more time in connection. Jim's session, which is normally 3 hours face-to-face, he was trying to get it down to 60 minutes. But now it comes across as a 60 minutes plus 30 minutes just to connect. And now for all our programs, we always add, and this is a pro tip for everyone, add 15 minutes to anything you're doing and just stay on the call. And you will be surprised. I just stole
your idea today.
Take it, use it, build it, break it, and what's incredible is a huge percentage of attendees will stay on. They may not ask a question. They may not participate, but I tell you what, they're soaking it up and thoroughly enjoying it. So let go of content, lean into connection, look for tools, and be incredibly generous. There's 1,000 other tips, but yeah.
So my mom and my sister both stayed on for the extra time, and I did not have any expectation that they would. I told them it was optional. And so when, you gave everyone permission to leave, I really expected them to leave. They both stayed on, and I'm thinking, it was a surprise. My mom's in her 70s. She's retired, and my sister is a physician. And this has been tough on her in that they have moved to a lot of telemedicine for clinic work and changes like that. And I don't think the telemedicine is the hard part. The lack of having all of the preparation and the charts organized and getting them in advance, it just wasn't happening. And so everything it rocked the boat a lot. And I think we've all had those moments. It's tough.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing to what James was saying. So how that extra time came about was I got my 3-hour program down to an hour and a half, and then the people that do this, some of my heroes that do webinars say, well, if you can do it in 60 minutes instead of 90 minutes, you're going to at least double your audience.
Wow.
And I said, well, I want to touch people, right? And so let's do it at 60. And then in my invitation, I say there's an optional 30 minutes. So it's still 90 minutes. It's just that 30 minutes is really just the connecting part. And one of the nicest comments, I got an email from someone this Wednesday, said, I'm so grateful for you staying on. Those 30 minutes felt like the internet did 20 years ago when anything was possible, right? And we were all just people from all over the world who just had, kind of an aha moment, talking about things from a more open personal space. And so, the advantage, I mean, for us as consultants and trainers, I'm a creativity consultant. In a normal program, I have to spend about 30 minutes to 45 minutes just making the case to be creative. Because everyone's comfortable. I got my way of doing things. Why do I have to do something different? Nobody's resisting change now. They just don't know how to do it. Yeah. So the need case for change is really super high. And then, but what people aren't getting is how to do that and the support for doing that. And so that 30-minute connection is key. There's one other thing I wanted to, can I just add one more thing? Yeah. I'm sorry. I think this is really on topic because you were talking before about that switch from, your old model to your new model. James and I are in the facilitation training, large events, coaching, anything that has to do with change management and learning, we do. So there are certain industries like catering right now. It's hard to find your way out of catering and how you're going to do something today. In our industry, of the 783 million trainers in the world, I made that number up, every single one of them is doing the exact same thing right now. Every single one of them is telling their clients, yes, I can do this virtually. Yes, we can do this online. Yes, yes, yes. Everyone is saying yes. And so there's this huge, it's like if you imagine everybody on a boat and everyone's saying, okay, everyone to the left side of the boat. And that's what's happening in our industry. The entire industry is all shifting over to one side of the boat. And so that quick shift by everybody means that you either have to be quicker or you got to be better. Or you've got to find, you've got to have some value add, like that 30-minute of connecting time as opposed to focusing on the content. You got to get, I always say, that 10,000 hours, you've got to get your 10,000 hours super fast because the participants are getting them faster than you are.
Yeah.
They're spending 10,000 hours on Zoom or whatever. And so they've seen what a good conference is like. They've seen what a good webinar is like. And if you don't match up in the first 30 seconds to 2 minutes, they're gone. They're not coming back.
And it's not just a matter of saying the thing we were going to do in person, now we're going to do it online. But you mentioned connection before content or over content. Can you share a little bit about that aha moment?
Yeah, so we've been running all these programs over the last few months. I mean, 3 months ago, 90% plus of our business was face-to-face, and we had to completely reimagine that and not just take it, because people meet in face-to-face workshops as much for the content as well as the camaraderie, and create a learning circle, an alumni of learners. And so when you move to that virtual, I mean, it's tough. I even saw in the news today that people are, there's a business that has invited people who have got llamas and goats to do, it's just in the news, I'll send you a link later, that if you really get bored with Zoom calls, you can, this farm in Silicon Valley has llamas that will, for $100 pop in to your Zoom call and join the call.
Oh my word.
I have a feeling it could be the greatest success. That's a different kind of connection, obviously.
I invite 3 dogs for free, so
yeah.
I'm cheaper.
And so And so this is this whole thing about your dogs, your family, or the humanity. People
Mhm.
stop dropping their virtual screens. I won't, because I'm in the storage cupboard, where the kids have locked me as punishment for what I did to them yesterday. But we want to see that humanity. People are leaving their microphones on so you can hear the hub of just life going on around them. Have a walking meeting, obviously socially distancing, but I'm going to go for a walk through the forest on the beach along this empty street and have the meeting because people want to see what's going on. So there's this craving for this. And so mental health has always been a challenge. We know that. And now it's even more challenging. And so we need to be mindful of that. So the human connection also comes about where, and I make recommendations to people, if someone you normally speak to twice a week, you haven't heard from in 2 weeks, pick up the phone, get on a call. They just might be in a dark place and they might need help. And especially now, more than ever. And so we just try and find other ways to connect, like adding 15, 30 minutes at the end of a workshop, or saying, I'm available. I know we've just finished this session, but if you want to talk about something, let's make a time. Don't give them the calendar. Please choose and make an appointment in the calendar of when I'm available. Just say what works for you. Great. Let me have a look. Yep, I'm free then. No problem.
But I thought you said
And
content before, connection before content, but
absolutely.
so we're going to connect at the end of the event,
Well,
or
it connect
Yes,
wherever
and.
it needs to be. Yeah, yes, and yeah. So we
So if you think
we
about
move the connection
what
to
we
there.
did in the webinar, there were 3 judiciously used breakout rooms,
Mm.
right? And small numbers, 2 or 3 people for a set amount of time with a very specific question. And so you don't want the breakout room to be chit chat and say, hey, so where are you? And blah, blah, blah. Oh, time's up. Right. And so you can get people to actually, people are willing and able to connect fairly quickly as long as they have something meaningful to share before they go into that breakout room. And so that's part of it. I have a lot of pet peeves with language, and one of them is social distancing. My brother, my brother from my mother, not from the other mother, my brother John, who lives in Indianapolis, he says it's not social. It should not be social distancing. It should be physical distancing with social connecting.
yes.
And so calling it social distancing sucks because then people feel distanced socially. But what it really should be is physical distancing with social connecting. And I think that's what's kind of happening now. And people are realizing, James and I do some work for a high-tech global high-tech company, and they have offices on the East Coast of America in Beijing. So there's constantly conference calls that are 12 hours apart. And so either it's 9 o'clock at night and 9 in the morning, or it's 9 o'clock at night and 9 in the morning. And so to be polite to each other, they don't have their cameras on because they don't want to impose, or I should say they didn't have their cameras on. They don't want to impose into people's family lives. Now it's normal to have your camera on, and the amount of connection that happens with cameras on and the engagement and the friendships. And so I think people are realizing that I don't have to be face to face to be heart to heart. And so what we need to do as organizers is find ways to create that ancillary connecting that could have happened in a face to face. So another story, I was just at a conference call for an organization that supports face to face events. And they had an hour and a half call, and the first 45 minutes, almost an hour, was updates. And it was great, and great information. You could hear the pin drop as they explain what they think is going to happen the next year or so. And then they had broke them off into breakout rooms. And when we came back from the breakout rooms, everyone was complaining. It's like nobody complained when they said, okay, we've had enough of one-to-one where we're telling you stuff, we're going to put you into breakout rooms. No one's saying, no, stop. But when we come back from the breakout rooms, like 15 minutes wasn't enough. Can we get more of this? And so I think it's a rethink of what do people need to stay connected to the content, and what they need is that engagement. And like in this case, one of the things you said at the beginning is, hey, make it real, make it relaxed. Nobody wants from, people won't sit for a formal interview, but if they buy into our relationship,
Yeah.
you might still be, if you're still here, I just like to say, man, you're better than me. Woo, 45 minutes. Yeah.
So, but as the facilitator of the session, how do you connect with people if they're connecting in breakouts and they can connect at the end? How do you? Otherwise, doesn't it feel like being a talking head? Like James has his hand up.
I
with
do.
Good manners.
My turn. I want to play. You need to move away from being the trainer and the talking head to be more of a facilitator. I mean, facilitator comes from the Latin facile, to make easy, yeah? And so it's about providing a process and allow them to have the content. You have a really strong question. There's probably enough wisdom in the room to actually find that solution. And often we ask people, how many years of experience do you have? And collectively in the room, you might have, within that organization alone who are attending the meeting, might have 200 years of experience. Who am I? Again, let go of the expert position. If people feel that you're coming in to lead the session, people will go, oh, you're here to lead it. I don't have to participate. And so you need to get them to interact immediately. If you're talking for 15 minutes, it's dead. Maybe introduce context for 5 minutes and throw them into a breakout room. There's more great magic happening there. So what do? You butterfly in or bumblebee into the different rooms and see how they're doing. As long as the question is clear, the process is understood, people will self-manage. If they don't know who's going to start talking, like I do a lot of work with universities, and the biggest challenge is perhaps the 30-year tenured professionals who are letting go of an old paradigm. That's one. The other is, how do you get your students to talk? And I think if you give them a great question, that's one thing, or give them a framework. All right, so the person whose first name is closest to the letter A in the alphabet, you have to speak first. I was like, oh, no. But at least I'll do it. And then it just starts the ball rolling. All these little things. Or get them to play rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
And whoever wins or loses, you frame it, is the person who does it. And so how do you do rock, paper, scissors? Well, you might have 25 people on a call, and as a demo you say, right, I want this person and this person, David and Mary, Bob and Jane, you're doing rock paper scissors with your cameras on. So cameras are on now, microphones are on, they're all laughing and engaging, and then okay, now I want you to do that in the breakout room. Sometimes I've popped in, they're still playing rock paper scissors and not getting onto the question, and you know what? That is absolutely fine. And in fact, in a 90-minute session, if I'm doing a series, like a 3-part series of interactive online workshops, not webinars, then I might use the first 30 minutes of the first one just to connect with everyone using different kinds of activities and energizers. We haven't even got to the content. And then and also helping these university professors say, look, what you did in the pre-world is not going to cut it. You had this much curriculum to get through during your whole semester. You're not going to be able to do that. You might get through half of it online. And you're going to have a flipped classroom, give them another place to search out the information, to do self-study, to connect with each other, because everyone has different learning styles. Yeah. The talking head at the front of the room, those days are over, completely over. And in fact, there's another group of schools, yeah, hooray. Really, I mean, there's another group of schools. There's another group of schools here who have decided, because they have such influence of other schools and perhaps potentially the government as well, it's a series of private, semi-private schools. They are now going through a phase of reimagining education. Do we need schedules? Why can't they be student-led? And some of the great insights are actually coming from homeschoolers, homeschooling professionals. We had this 300-person conference a few weeks ago. That was an interesting one to produce on, but it was basically teachers from all across the planet had come together to listen to a panel and to interact and to reimagine the power and learning from homeschooling, because there's a lot of parallels now, everyone's homeschooling, into this new context. And many of the universities here are already saying, okay, it's going to be like this for 12 months. Can't we go back to, no. If in the wonderful miracle that it does happen, great. And now I want you to plan, not to go, let's make an announcement in 4 weeks, and then you're on edge. Let's make an announcement in another 4 weeks. What I love seeing at other places around the planet is calling it and saying, this is what it's going to be like for 12 months. I'd like you to now put plans in place. There is a very large computer software company, perhaps the largest in the planet, whoever they might be, have said that there will be no face-to-face meetings until 2022. Is that right, Jim? Is that the number? Is that the date?
No,
I
not
heard
right at
summer
all.
of 21, but
Yeah,
at
summer of
least a year and a
21.
half. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So so instead of saying, okay, let's revisit this in a month, they've just called it. It's like this for a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then people are actually grateful. They're like, oh, thank goodness, I can now make plans.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't have to go, should I go on that holiday? Should I book that? Should I go after? Should I take that course now? Or no, they know, okay, so it's 12 months. I'm going to be on a 3 to 4 day working week, depending on the industry you're in. Or I'm now, as an entrepreneur, having to take the skills and values I have and reimagine it in a different kind of, what are the needs? Where are we going? So all this, I mean, I have this background. It's Hong Kong, storm clouds with a silver lining. It is storm clouds with a silver lining. I don't know about you lot, but normally during Chinese New Year, when the factories shut down for 2 or 3 weeks, pollution doesn't completely disappear, but reduces significantly. I look outside, and when I do go outside and breathe the fresh-ish air, it is the lowest pollution levels I have experienced since I first came here 20 years ago. Yeah. And all these other things that are happening across the planet. And I feel more connected to my friends, my family, my friend clients, and other things. I'm making new amazing connections, thanks Jessica, which were made possible because of the inner circle of connections we have, and connecting to the next layer of circles as well. I think we are in the most, well, what an incredible time, at great expense and great pain. I don't deny that.
Yeah.
But this is an incredible opportunity, and I don't mean to make money. I mean to make some significant changes.
Amen.
And to be an agent for change.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned education changing. The other big one I think of is appreciation for healthcare workers, the nurses. So not just the elite educated doctors, but I mean, they're amazing too. But the people that are in there really risking everything, the people cleaning the hospitals, and just reevaluating our hierarchy of how and why we appreciate people. But I do want to
supply chain.
Oh gosh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The
I am so grateful for the delivery guy who comes to our door.
Pork producers in America now, these guys that are working in these slaughterhouses, and you start to realize, hey man, that pork came from, this whole supply chain, the clothing supply chain, so you start to realize there's so many unsustainable business and lifestyle practices that we all have.
Yeah.
That we just kind of turn a blind eye to because it just magically shows up in the Amazon box or at the store. But once it starts to break down and you can't buy that thing because humans are unable to produce it, because to produce it means that you're risking their life. Well, a lot of them are risking their lives anyways on a day-to-day basis to make your rubber gloves for the doctors and nurses and all these other things. So I think it kind of provides a sense of scope and scale to think about.
So I want to just go back to a point, James, that you may just touch on it really quickly when you were talking about the big company that canceled events for a year and a half and how that can be such a great thing for the people participating. But the first thing that came to my mind was, if you're the person delivering events and now you know that you're going to be doing that for a year and a half, you're going to go all in, I would hope, as opposed to if you're like, we just kind of have to like get by for 3 months or shift from spring to fall and then we can go back. No, this is a year and a half, 2 years. So let's crack the code on how to make it amazing.
Yeah. The international travel. I read this. I'm originally from New Zealand, so I follow what's going on there, and I've got family in New York. I've got people all over the place. But when I think about what's going on in places like New Zealand, oh, there it goes. Yes, I used to live not far from there to hiking. In New Zealand, they're thinking about, so what does this mean for the next 1 to 2 years? We might have to keep our borders closed. And if people want to come here for the next 2 years, you're going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks. When you go home, you will probably have to quarantine. Imagine the impact on international travel, because that means you need at least a month set aside for quarantine. They better be really good hotels with great views, and which is another opportunity. And secondly, you probably want to have 2 to 3 months. So therefore, it's not a holiday. Think of it as a sabbatical. So if we're already homeschooling, and so a number of people on the call are now basically going, okay, that's a new business idea. Good, go forth, do something amazing with this, because now it's not the holiday for leisure. It is, but it can also be a sabbatical where you can continue to learn. You know, often professors might take a year off on a sabbatical. Why can't a family do that for 3 to 6 months? You're already homeschooling. And so you could do that in New Zealand. You could do it in Japan. You could do that in Bermuda. What a great idea.
I talked to my wife just yesterday. I talked to my wife. I said, man, you know, once we can do this, everything's virtual anyways. My son's doing college online from Taiwan, so he's still getting credits in America.
Yep.
You know, if we can get there and quarantine for 14 days in a hotel in Bali, and then get my kids scuba diving lessons.
Sure.
You know, and we just spend a month or two there. Then we come back, we quarantine. Hey man, I've done it before. It ain't that bad. I can take 2 weeks in my house.
If you want to have the trip of a lifetime, make it significant. You know, go whale watching in Kaikoura on the east coast of the South Island, New Zealand. Yes, would I be willing to quarantine for 2 weeks to do that? Absolutely. To give this experience to my children, a memory of a lifetime, and they've already had a good practice at living in the same space together. As long as the place you're staying has Wi-Fi, everything is possible. So yes, will it disrupt international tourism? Yes. And we are now about to embark on a new kind of, and so people are going to think about domestic tourism. Wow, we can actually, you know, I remember an advertisement in New Zealand. There was a big TV series of commercials back in the 80s called "Don't Leave Home Till You've Seen the Country," and there's all these funny scenes of, you know, in a taxi in New York, and the taxi driver's talking to this Kiwi in the back seat. Say, you're from New Zealand, I hear, and he's these different facts, and the guy in the back going, oh, I don't know, and everywhere he went, and so it was just this, you know, Kiwis tend to make fun of themselves and each other. So why not? Yeah, we can reimagine, and tourism is a massive part of New Zealand's whole industry. So we now need to rethink that. So does that mean people might have to retrain and reskill? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Will this be painful during this? Yeah, but I think if we can hold on to a new future, and this is kind of where this call was leading to as well, this new promise of things to come, and it's not fluff. It's not a pipe dream. It is a great new potential that we can co-create together, this co-creative next. Was that a nice segue?
I was going to say, so I heard, Jimbo, you mentioned that earlier, and I only know what it is because I was there. I was not a contributor. I was purely a witness to the moment. What is co-creative next?
I think it started from me, again, you know, I don't like that term social distancing. I don't like the term pivot, but we're not going to go there. But I also don't like the term the new normal. And what I don't like about the new normal is, to me, it implies waiting for. I'm waiting for this new normal.
Yeah.
And so when the new normal's here, then I can. Or is this the new normal? Right? And the answer is no, because we all know this is temporary. Whatever it is now, you got 1 month, 2 months, whatever. So this is not normal. It'll change into some next and some next and some next. And so it's just when James and I were talking a while ago, this idea of co-creative next that showed up as a way of thinking about things that are a little more proactively. So it's like, I have this mental image in my own mind of the world's football, of soccer. You know, either you're a player or you're a fan, you know, or you're an observer. And if you're a player, you're on the field and you're contributing. And if you're a fan, you're hoping they score, right? And you think that the more you cheer, the more difference it's going to make. But honestly speaking, the players make the points. And so I think calling it the co-creative next invites you to be a player. That you and I together can co-create a next, which could be tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
which could be very immediate. And by co-creating that next, then that co-creates the next and the next, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so instead of waiting for the new normal, participate in the co-creative next.
So
And
if people are listening and they're like, interesting, and if they're anything like me, they've butt in and they're like, I've joined your fraternity, sorority, whether you like it or not. Is this the two of you? I mean, I already invited myself. Is this a 3-person think tank?
it's co-creative. So yeah. So right now we're running our first event next Thursday. Even though we're living in Asia, we're running it in what we would call U.S. time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be 11 o'clock in the evening our time, 11 in the morning East Coast, 8 in the morning West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now I think, you know, Asia has, to a certain degree, because of SARS experience and because of how things have played out, there's a kind of connectivity to what's going on now and what they're doing next.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think the way it's playing out in America and the level of uncertainty of duration and level of catastrophe, there's a much bigger need there for that sense. And so we're starting with an hour and a half plus a half hour, where we've got a new format that we're trying to get diverse people together, give them an interesting topic, put them into breakout rooms, let them tell us what the trends they see are. Come back, share back those trends, put them in different breakout rooms and look for possibilities, share back possibilities, and then gather around those possibilities. And so then in that gathering around possibilities, that's where you have that chance to find the co-creative. So in our format, the idea is let's think about the future. Let's create possibilities around the future. Let's listen to each other and see where there might be some connection, and make that first connection today, and then you go off and you do however you connect.
Yeah, we don't own any of this stuff. If you've got a great idea that you think, oh, I don't know if I want to share this, please don't bring that idea. We're looking for new stuff, or for you to bring the best of yourself to start to imagine something completely new. So anyone that you're in that group with becomes open source for them. We want you to be able to create unique possibilities and to provide some hope with that. We have a framework. We've had variations of it over the years. And, you know, we have family and friends in North America, and it may suit some in the European time zone
European
as well.
time zone too, yes.
So that's kind of sort of in the middle, sort of East Coast time, because it sort of, you know, crosses the pond as well. You know, people said, well, why don't you do it in Asia first? It's your backyard. But we're doing a lot of stuff already here, and this is something we want to be doing. As I said, we have family and friends in North America and in Europe, so why not? And also, you know, put a fire in a belly about this, Jessica.
It was
you may have had something to do about that. So yeah. So I was slightly distracted earlier because I had to make this background very quickly. So for those who you know, still playing with Zoom, you know, all I do is, it's a virtual background. I just made a PowerPoint slide, took a screenshot of it, and then imported it. And so you can actually put the question that you're asking to the group as your background as well, as opposed to it's just a, you know, that's a lovely background. It's a, I know, mind blown. So and a stack of other pro tips and stuff. Sign up now and you can join our sessions or whatever. It's all free. And the other thing is, everything changes on Zoom every 72 hours, so just keep updating and checking to see what's new.
So just to call out, so that Co-Creative Next, it's for people who want to be players in figuring out and innovating what's next. And it doesn't cost money. You don't have to bring your playlist.
No, we're going to do a small cover charge, yeah.
Yeah, we are going to a cover charge, but we don't play middlemen. And what I mean by that is, you make your connections in the context, and we do our best to make sure that you're connecting with as many different people, and you're able to connect around people and ideas, and then you take that connection out. And so we're not playing middlemen for connecting people, and we're not playing middlemen for ideas. And so it's really about people who want to be a player get together, they share their insights about what the trends are, they come up with possible ideas. They
Yeah.
gather around those ideas, and anyone can take any idea out and do with it what they want. And then, like James said, if in this process you see the most beautiful, wonderful idea, shut up, write it down, and call the people you already know and do it that way. And that's okay
Yeah.
too, right? But once you speak it out, it's in the, you know, it's out there. So they're all our ideas, and there's a difference between an idea and an implementation.
Yeah.
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 So
So a cover charge to cover, because it does take time and effort to host.
We don't
but
make
not a
anything
20
out of it. Yeah. Yeah.
But not a $20,000 a year mastermind membership.
No.
or
No, we want to make it
$25.
accessible and easy. The reason we decided, we had a long discussion about this. Should we charge? Should we make it free? And we thought, well, when you charge a small amount, people take it more seriously, and you always get the 20% no-show. And then when it was face-to-face, if it rained, you get 30% no-show. Now, if it rains, you get an increase of attendance. So partly is to ensure that everyone attends, because we don't want to waste the seats and the opportunity.
Yeah, you value what you pay for.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
And even if it's just a small amount, and which it is.
Yep.
The other reason is it helps us to cover costs like the cost of the domain name, paying a friend a small amount to build a website for us.
Yeah.
And it's just a small amount. We stay local. We do everything local. We try and engage our friends, and it's just small amounts. Yeah. So seriously, when you look at the numbers, we don't make anything out of it.
No.
I think
And
the other
we're
reason
happy to give our time for it. Yeah.
Yes.
For me, the other thing is it makes a shift in my thinking, because I mean, I think right now a lot of people are donating their gifts online and whatnot. And you kind of say, well, hey, it's free. So if it doesn't work out, if I got, some technical glitch or whatever, but here it makes me think, no, we are charging people. And so we got to make sure this is actually quality.
Yeah.
This is going to be a high quality prototype.
Yeah. I got excited when you said it, because I'm like, oh, this is a thing. I mean, like, for real. I knew it would be, but it's just, it is. So we'll have more information in a slide after the session too, when folks want to learn more, because the font on James's screen is really teeny.
I just made it in 30 seconds, so apologies. I'll try and increase it for you. Keep going.
I wouldn't apologize.
I can read it out for you.
We're just prototyping, yeah. So
for the visual impaired.
Yeah.
Basically, it's look up Co-Creative Next in LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Or the Co-Creative Next. Yeah. Yeah.
So I know I've stolen a lot of your time in the morning. Any other practical advice? I mean, if you're about, 10 weeks ahead of us or something in like COVID years, that's like, 800 marches in US terms. What other practical tips do you have? Make sure you chime in and talk about CRISP.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, James is going to put that up too. So I'll let James talk about.
You go, Jim.
Well, so the actual practical tip that I tell people, number one of my main mantras right now is everything's a prototype. And James and I were in an interview with a gentleman who was in charge of creating a whole highway infrastructure for Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is built on very new mountains, islands. And so they never know what kind of dirt they're going to have, what kind of sediment. And so he's saying, yeah, well, every highway we build is a prototype. And we're like, a highway is a prototype? I mean, you can't really get that wrong, can you? But I think right now, more than at any time in the world, this is a time to prototype for profit, to prototype for production, to prototype for connection. And so there's been 30 times in the last 2 weeks where I've put something out there that I didn't think was perfect, that I wrote a book 3 years ago that I never put out there because it wasn't good enough. Well, now I've got it for a digital download on my website. Guess what? I just paid for dinner yesterday with books.
Yeah.
Right? And so thinking that everything's a prototype and to get it to the public quickly, like software engineers do, is one really quick and simple tip.
Perfection is the enemy of good enough.
Yeah. That's I'm gonna just write that down. Hold on a second.
And let me trademark that. 1 second here.
I already bought the
Okay, good.
domain now. So James, any practical tips from you? Any advice?
Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. You know, we often, when these things happen, people go into a mindset of scarcity and reduce the ability to go into one of abundance. There is still enough there, even with push the fear aside, push the challenges, and find ways to connect. So Jim and I have an incredible network of people, as do you, Jessica. And we connect to other hubs of people, not to leech from, but to connect and lift each other up. There's a huge opportunity there. We've got friends in Singapore. We used to do 2-day face-to-face graphic recording and visual facilitation workshops to teach the power of visuals in any kind of work, coaching, training, and so on. We've now taken it online, and based on Jim's experience, we're learning from each other. We're now going to offer that every fortnight free as a lunchtime session, obviously with a view to promote our paid services as well.
Yeah.
But it's okay if people just come and hang out with us for an hour plus 30 minutes of connection to learn these skills as well. You know, so, you know, teaching Lego serious play method, which can only be done face to face, can it? And now we've found ways to do some introductions to it, and the list goes on and on and on. And I think as long as you offer the hand first of one to support versus one to take, you know, reach out to your clients, not to push your product, but see what they need. I think we all know that people just want to, just reaching out, just checking in on you, how you're doing. And if you have that sort of approach, that mentality, you know, things will start to unfold. And if you find yourself getting stuck, don't go into the dark hole. I know it can be tough. Be willing to reach out. And likewise, for those who see your friends starting to disappear because they're not speaking to you, pick up the phone. One friend I haven't spoken to in 2 years, who only you get the occasional message, because who phones anymore? It's just a message, yeah?
Yeah.
He made a decision for 1 month just to pick up the phone and speak to people he has known and has not spoken to for a while. And I was like, I saw the phone ringing and his name. I was like, why isn't he just messaging me? And I was like, oh, talking. Oh, that's interesting. What a great what a gift. And so make a list of people that you haven't spoken to in a while. Don't text them. Phone them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people internationally that I touch base with, and some of them I've known since high school. I spent a lot of time in Spain, and so I was reaching out to a bunch of them one day, and, you know, when they were in the worst of it, which they're still not out of it. And one of them broke down on me, and I just felt so honored to be able to be there in that moment, because we've stayed close, but we haven't actually had a conversation like that in forever. And I know they would do the same for me in a heartbeat, but they really are precious times. And I have on my whiteboard that opportunity to add value abounds. And so if we are out meeting with people, investing, connecting, being generous, opportunity to add value does abound.
Yeah. What
We are
I'd like
looking forward to being on this journey with you, Jessica. We are.
Yeah, me too.
I wanted to, and I'm going to quote it as your sisters, because in the training that we did, you come up with like a phrase that helps you think differently. I think it was hers, which was "make new better."
Yes, my sister Stephanie.
Yeah, yes, I've adopted that because that's so easy for me to remember. Make the new Jimbo better. Make the new business better. Make the new community better. You know, and so just make new better. And I use that with myself now quite a lot, because I don't want to go towards a new normal. I want to go to a new better. And so I think that, you know, finding these ways of doing that. And then the other thing I want to acknowledge, because I know on this call where the audience are small to medium sized businesses, you know, James and I are both solopreneurs. And so neither of us have a large payroll. There's a certain amount of fixed cost in maybe offices and stuff like that. But I also just want to acknowledge that in some ways, it may sound like we're speaking a little bit glibly. Oh, well, you know, you just pivot, you just do this instead of that. And And I just want to recognize the fact that we probably have a higher likelihood of being able to do that, or an ease with which to do that. There's a clear road that us and all of our colleagues and competitors are all running down together. So doesn't take a huge amount of creativity, and that, you know, we can make maybe a quicker adjustment because we don't have the fixed cost and the payroll. And so for people who have those kinds of constraints, then you might need a little bit of help, you know, with some process like doing a wave analysis or some other things.
Yeah.
So getting some help with thinking differently might be really helpful.
Yeah. Well, and with the co-creative next, the cool thing is when you have people in different scenarios, you can challenge the thinking around being nimble and agile. And the benefit they have is oftentimes more resources. I mean, they've got multiple skill sets and things like that, and bringing all that together.
Exactly.
So this has been fantastic, and we could talk forever until my bedtime, which is probably in like 2 hours. But I know you guys have actual work to do. One last super practical tip. I don't know who's going to get the URL out there fast enough for noise canceling service.
It's
For
going to
those
be
of you,
James. I can tell you that much right now.
Okay, maybe I will.
actually
I
super
don't have
valuable.
shares. Can I start by saying I don't have shares in the company?
But it's valuable. It's noise
All right.
canceling.
All right, so I don't know if putting it in the chat works here, and so it's called CRISP, KRISP. I've just posted it in the chat, or I could pop it up here. But anyway, just go to the website and check it out. What I love about it, and it's developing because as everything else upgrades quickly, it may not always fit with all your systems, but it's, for me, you won't have heard this, but I've got cats, kids, kitchens, and chaos going on behind me. And
Yeah.
of course, in Hong Kong, there's building construction going on all the time. I had someone sledgehammering through a wall yesterday, and the people on the other call couldn't hear a thing. I can hear it because I haven't got noise cancelers myself in.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of cool. As I said, I don't have shares in the company. However, they do have the system that if you create it and you set it up and you send someone a link and they click on your link, then you'll get 2 free months and you'll get a month. If it's someone in your same domain name of your company, then you'll get 4 free months and they'll get a couple of months. So I'm not sure I need any more because at the moment I have a free service up until June 2023. So Jim, okay. Maybe I should put my wife's in
I'll be
here.
the poor little brother. I get it through. I'm only through December 3rd, 2020. So, yeah. Anyways, it's worth it. The other thing that I just did recently, I'm sure we've all been on the call where who's speaking has noise, so they can't really mute. It also takes that noise out, so it will denoise the speakers, not just the microphone. So it does work like magic.
That's awesome and super practical, which this summit is all about practical. So
Yeah.
thank you both so much. I cannot wait for next week and Co-Creative Next, and hopefully those of you who are really interested in participating, join us. We're not looking for mass quantities. We're looking for people who really want to be players and brainstorming and just that energy that comes from people bouncing ideas off of each other.
People who are open to connect.
Yes.
Right. So
And
what we don't want is we don't want people coming in just trying to glean ideas and running away. We're really looking for who's looking to try to do things in a different way.
Yeah. I'm so excited. Thank you both so much. I appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we will talk soon.
Thanks, Jessica.
Yep.
May the box be with you.